Have you ever wondered how a routine university sports trip could trigger massive parallel investigations by the nation's top agencies, and honestly, force a total reckoning at one of the most prestigious institutions in the country? Well, don't click away. I promise you this is not just another piece of AI-generated slop. What we're doing today is a meticulously researched, highly detailed explainer breaking down the hard facts of a very real, very tragic situation. If you appreciate objective, deeply researched explainers like this one, do me a favor and hit that like button right now. It really helps us keep bringing you the facts. So, the core question we're looking at today is this. Was it just a tragic accident, or are we looking at criminal negligence? On June 8th, a team-building trip for the Ateneo Basketball University men's basketball team ended in the unimaginable deaths of two student-athletes, 19-year-old Rene Baterbonia and 21-year-old Divine Adili. And, as more details surface from the grieving families, the surviving players, and investigators, authorities are seriously questioning the initial narrative of what went down.
All right, Chapter 1, The Fateful Day in Aurora.
Let's walk through the timeline that investigators have actually managed to piece together. The coaching staff, which included then head coach Tab Baldwin, arrived early on June 6th. The players got there the next afternoon. Then, on the morning of June 8th, they were doing calisthenics and playing some games. And get this, the losing team from those morning games was made to prepare lunch. After a short rest, the players were called to assemble at 2:30 p.m. for a walk that would prove fatal just 10 minutes later.
Now, we have to talk about a totally critical environmental factor here, and that is rip currents. These are super powerful, narrow channels of fast-moving water that can just drag you out to sea. According to the resort co-owner Francisco Zubia, the Ateneo coaching staff wasn't new to this location. They had actually been conducting training there since 2016. He was explicitly clear that he and the coaches had consistently discussed the presence of these dangerous rip currents and exactly which areas were safe for swimming and which ones absolutely were not.
Which makes the location of the incident incredibly crucial. See, the designated safe zone was directly in front of the resort. It had shallower waters and a standby lifeguard. But the team deviated from that. They walked about 300 meters away from this safe zone to a totally isolated, dangerous area. And according to police reports, they did this after specifically requesting privacy, which placed them far, far away from the immediate help of any resort personnel.
During the rescue and retrieval operations, there was drone footage that thankfully debunked some really wild viral social media rumors. There were absolutely no weights tied to the players' bodies. But the footage and the police investigations did confirm something else that's pretty damning. During this highly dangerous water conditioning activity, out in those strong waves, there were 0 life vests used, and no dedicated lifeguards were positioned by the team in that isolated area.
The human cost of these decisions is just devastating. Rene Baterbonia's mother, Ravelin, completely rejected the public apologies. She is demanding the absolute truth of what really happened, rather than just brushing it off as a simple accident. Meanwhile, Divine Adili's family back in Nigeria lost their first son and their breadwinner, expressing deep, deep frustration over what they call sheer neglect. Before we dive into how the government is responding to all of this, I really want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. What are your thoughts on the safety protocols, or the lack thereof, for university athletic training?
Moving on to Chapter 2, The Investigations Unfold.
With mounting pressure from the public and the grieving families, these unanswered questions triggered a massive multi-agency legal reckoning. We are not just talking about local police anymore. The PNP's Criminal Investigation and Detection Group is looking into homicide and hazing. You got the Department of Justice and the NBI probing criminal negligence, the Department of Labor and Employment, the Commission on Higher Education, and literally even the Philippine Congress have all launched parallel inquiries to determine both institutional and individual liability. It is a massive sweep.
CIDG Director Major General Robert Morico II was pretty clear on this. He stated that placing individuals in such dangerous conditions, specifically forcing them to do calisthenics in unpredictable waters 300 meters away from safety, did not exercise the due diligence of a good father of the family. And if you're not familiar, in the Philippines, that is the specific legal standard for basic, responsible care and common sense. Because of the sheer severity of these ongoing inquiries, the Department of Justice stepped in and issued an Immigration Lookout Bulletin order. This order actually includes resigned head coach Tab Baldwin and several members of his staff. Basically, this ensures that authorities are instantly alerted if any of them attempt to leave the country while these investigations are actively trying to determine criminal liability.
Which brings us to Chapter 3, Institutional Reckoning.
Beyond the police and the courts, this tragedy sparked an intense internal crisis and severe public backlash aimed right at the university's culture itself. legal experts and alumni have been sharply contrasting the responses of two different institutions. On one side, you have what critics are now calling Fortress Ateneo from Ateneo de Manila, characterized by cold, lawyered-up statements, closed turnstiles, and a highly managed, almost corporate crisis response. But on the exact opposite side, Ateneo de Davao took a highly communal, outward-reaching approach. They embraced the grieving community and immediately offered full scholarships to Rene's siblings. Night and day difference.
To really understand the legal weight facing the institution and its coaches, we turn to a breakdown by legal expert Dean Tony Lavinia. He explains the critical difference between simple negligence and reckless imprudence. Simple negligence, that's a momentary lapse. But reckless imprudence is consciously creating an unreasonable, completely foreseeable risk of harm. Placing students in unpredictable, dangerous sea conditions without life vests or emergency personnel? Yeah, that definitely crosses the line. Because of this, alumni and student alliances aren't holding back. They are demanding sweeping changes to dismantle this self-protecting Fortress Ateneo culture. Their demands include firing the communications director for prioritizing image over empathy, taking down campus turnstiles to be more communal, a voluntary withdrawal from the upcoming UAP season as a real statement of accountability, and providing direct, generous mediation and compensation for the grieving families. Hey, if you're finding this deep dive valuable so far, please go ahead and share this explainer with someone who needs to see the full picture.
All right, let's look at the path forward, seeking justice.
How does a community, let alone a whole country, reconcile the loss of two promising young lives with the very institutions that were meant to protect them? This perspective from Dean Tony Lavinia perfectly summarizes the cultural and legal battle that is currently unfolding. He pointed out that a grieving mother from Agusan del Sur should not have to extract answers from one of the wealthiest institutions in this country. It hits hard, doesn't it? The pursuit of justice here is moving on two simultaneous tracks. First, there's the push for strict legal accountability for the coaches who acted as guardians and failed to protect their players. Second, there's this massive institutional reflection on the highly demanding and sometimes dangerous culture of college sports, and how universities manage their public image versus their actual moral responsibilities.
So, we are left with a pretty profound open question. Will the immense pressure from multiple government agencies and the growing demands to dismantle Fortress Ateneo finally bring the truth and justice for Rene and Divine? The investigations are absolutely still ongoing, and literally the eyes of the entire nation are watching to see if true accountability will actually be taken. If you want to stay updated as we continue to break down complex stories just like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for learning with us today, and we'll see you in the next explainer.